Hello, this is Jack Anthony, and I'd like to tell you a story, the story of Gemini 76, two Gemini spacecraft that flew in 1965, but the story of how they got to where they were able to execute the first ever rendezvous in proximity in space was a story of grit and determination, and I'd like to tell you that story because it's how we bolted ahead in the race to the moon. The Gemini program was flown after the Mercury program. It was a two astronaut spacecraft, very maneuverable, and it was to prove out many of the concepts necessary for the Apollo moon mission. So it was an important bridge to Apollo capability. 10 missions flew in a period of 19 months, and much was accomplished. Most of all, the confidence to go headlong into Apollo. Gemini 3 proved the spacecraft worked well. Gemini 4 is most famous for Ed White's spacewalk. But in that mission, McDivitt and White learned some astro lessons regarding the satellite paradox. They attempted to rendezvous with the second stage of the Titan that was tailing behind them. But they found astrodynamic laws were a little different than the air power laws that they went by as test pilots. So they learned a lot and they helped us get ready more so. Gemini 5 was going to jettison a target vehicle to do rendezvous and proxops in it. However, they had some trouble with the fuel cell early in the mission, and Conrad and Cooper focused on fixing that problem. So they didn't get to do the test they wanted, but they did enjoy 8 days in space, and that was a major milestone. Now we come to Gemini 6. That was the mission where they were going to launch an Atlas Agena and have a target vehicle be on orbit, and then astronauts Schirra and Stafford would go up, rendezvous, do proximity ops, maneuver in its vicinity, and then dock with it. That would be a major accomplishment. Well, on 25 October 1965, the Atlas Agena launched, but there was a problem, and the Agena target never made it to orbit. So that was a failure to get that mission off the ground. So it was back to the drawing board. What should we do? Well, it turned out two guys, Walter Burke and John Yardley of McDonnell Douglas, the folks who built the spacecraft, proposed a dual Gemini mission. Gemini 6 would be the chaser, and Gemini 7, which was scheduled for a 14-day endurance mission, would be the target. To do this, there would have to be a tremendously fast launch pad turnaround. And this would prove to be difficult, but soon you'll find the folks in charge of that found a way to do it. They had less than 2 months before Gemini 7 would fly, so they had some work to do. Gemini 7 would be a 14-day human endurance mission. Imagine sitting with your best friend in the front seat of a Volkswagen Bug for 14 days. Now, if you're weightless, it might be a little more comfortable, but that's what Frank Borman and Jim Lovell did on their long mission of Gemini 7. Now, you may notice Gemini 6 hasn't launched yet. 7 went before 6. Let's find out what was involved in getting 6 off the ground. Well, 7 clears pad 19. Now a normal 60-day pad turnaround had to be accomplished in 9 days. Gunter Wendt, the pad boss, initial reaction was, "Oh man, you are crazy." You might want to add a German heritage accent. He was a colorful character, and golly, did I enjoy talking to him when he was alive. Well, they were able to figure out how to turn the pad in 9 days, and they actually did it in 8, and they had Gemini 6 ready to go. So on 12 December, with Gemini 7 having been on orbit for 8 days, Gemini 6 was scheduled to take off, and its engines ignited, and then they extinguished. Oh my gosh, what happened? Well, a plug fell out, and it shut down the engines. Also, in clearing the vehicle for a second attempt, they found there was a dust cover and a gas injector that was still installed, not removed, in preparation for flight. So you might say they were lucky. So Schirra and Stafford had a second no-go. Oh my gosh. Gemini 7 is up there orbiting the Earth, and Gemini 6 has not given chase. Let's learn more. A third time is a charm. And on 15 December, which happens to be my dad's birthday, and he's in heaven now. He was a Marine too. But I remember on 15 December 1965, Gemini 6 successfully launched from the Cape, and Schirra and Stafford were on their way. Well, in Schirra's book called Schirra's Space, he talks about how he prepared for that flight. He learned a lot of astrodynamics about rendezvous and proxops. He learned from his friend Buzz Aldrin, who was the Apollo 11 astronaut. And Buzz did his PhD research in rendezvous and proxops. So Wally was really learned up on how to do this stuff. So 4 orbits later, Gemini 6 meets up with Gemini 7, and the dance begins. For almost 4 orbits, Gemini 6 maneuvered around Gemini 7, getting as close as 1 foot. They practiced different circumnavigations about Gemini 7, and they gained a lot of confidence. They couldn't dock with each other, but they could get close, and they realized how to execute these maneuvers to support rendezvous, proximity operations, and docking, which was needed for the Apollo program. There was some shenanigans on this mission. 3 of the 4 astronauts went to the Naval Academy. 1, Frank Borman, went to the Military Academy. A certain football game was coming up, Army-Navy, and from Gemini 7's window, they saw over in Gemini 6 something in the window. They were told it was part of a so-called visual acuity test. You'll see in the window, the Naval Academy guys put up a little sign saying, "Beat Army." How about that? Frank was not too thrilled, but they moved on. Most of what I'm telling you here is a summary of a paper that Dr. Owen Brown and I wrote in 2010. And in writing that article in the High Frontier magazine, we spoke with a lot of folks, including these folks. Jim Lovell and Tom Stafford were crew members. We spoke with Gunter Wendt, the pad boss, Gene Krantz, and a wonderful gentleman named Ed Findell, who was a flight controller. They all pointed out that they had the grit and determination. We were in a race to the moon. And they also shared that the very people that were managing and engineering the flight were the ones in the control room in mission control, helping make it happen. So there's a lesson learned there. It was a wonderful chat with these guys. In 2010, the article was published in May 2010. But Christmas 2010, I happened to receive a special gift. The Time magazine cover of 24 December 1965 featured the 4-orbit profile of Gemini 6 chasing down Gemini 7. And my kids framed it up and gave it to me. And here's a picture from that Christmas morning. So that hangs on my wall today. Even Time magazine got excited about Gemini 76. I'll end with this note. If you want to learn more, get on the internet. I'm sure you know what that is. And search for High Frontier, May 2010. High Frontier used to be the magazine of Space Command. And in there, there's an article written by Dr. Owen Brown and I called Gemini 76, Lessons from the Past and Visions for the Future. And I encourage you to find that article and read it. It goes into some great detail. Owen Brown wrote a really nifty opening and closing of the article, but most of the article goes into much greater detail as to what I'm telling you here in this short video. Well, 58 years ago, Gemini 6 chased down Gemini 7 and did the first ever rendezvous in proximity in space. It helped us bolt forward in the race to the moon, and it was a really cool space flight. That is one of my most favorites because I'm really into this rendezvous in prox ops. So read our article if you wish, and I hope you enjoyed this celebration of this mission that occurred 15 December 1965. Take care.